Good morning. Good morning. Today is day January 10th, Tuesday, January 10th, for me at least. Could be a different day for other people on the planet. Possibly. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, January 10th, and we are done with composition. Done with composition. Well, we're never done with composition, right? I mean, we'll continue to study it, continue to look at it, continue to use it, but the live stream is done going over the composition aspects, the principles of composition. Do we need a quick look over at what we went around, basically? Everything we went over. Good morning, Thinker. My remote friend, that's good. Like it. So in composition, we went over space division first. That took 2 streams. And we went over emphasis, which also took 2 streams. And then balance. And then yesterday was unity. So yeah, we hit a lot with composition. Fantastic. So I'm excited because we're done with the theory part of things, and now we're going to get it into the practical practice part of things, which is always fun. And I'm excited to talk about this because it's one of the practices that I used to do all the time. And off and on, I'll get back into it. And actually, when I started Krita for the first time, when I started digital art for the first time, I got back into this practice. And this is the drawing warm-up that I used to do traditionally with charcoal on paper, on newsprint paper. And I could probably get back to it now because it's so helpful. But when I was introduced back into Krita, I got back into the warm-up because it's a wonderful way to figure out a material, a new material. And that's what digital is. It's a brand new material. It's a new medium. And trying to figure it out is great. And this works for all materials, really. So, yeah. I'm reading over my notes. That's why there's some pauses in here. So in my opinion, this is the best place to start within Krita or any new medium that you have, because it can help you get an idea of how the medium works, how it feels. And if any of you listening or watching have been into different mediums throughout your life, you know that they all have kind of a different feeling to them. They all have a different way of working, and you need to get some idea of how the medium works. Sorry, had some spam come up in our chat I had to fix. Moderating and teaching at the same time. So let me give you an example of the traditional. I have it right here, an image of it, because on my website, chrisbevan.com, I log everything. I want to show every artist what it takes to get to where I'm at right now, which hopefully is pretty good. We're always improving. So this is done on a drawing board, either sitting or standing, with charcoal or with graphite, any kind of pencil, pen, whatever you want to use, that kind of thing. I think I've done it in paint once. It's hard in paint because, trying to get these really big lines in paint, you don't have a brush that is full that much. Maybe you could do it in watercolor. Not sure. Never tried it. But this is what we're going to be dealing with today. This is what we're going to be making. Here's some sections, kind of give you an idea of what's going to be happening. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the image right here, but this is kind of like what we'll come out of. And I'll build it up while I'm talking about it and give you the benefits of it while I'm talking about it. So I just wanted to show you, this is going to be the daily warm-up Krita document that I'm going to share with you. If you want it, or if you want the materials for the course, check out my Gumroad. It's linked in the description of this live stream, and very inexpensive for that. And I'll talk more about that later. So there's only 2 lines on this document. That's all you need. I'm going to zoom in to 100%. As soon as I get back to my page, there we go, 100%. And then I can hit tab to get rid of everything except for my paper. Look at that. Beautifully clean. This is all it is. And the first thing we're going to do is draw a circle. And I'm kind of moving around here. You don't see it because obviously I'm not on camera, but I'm getting my arm ready, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to draw with our arm, not our hand. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's do a quick illustration. So here's your hand, okay? And you have a thumb off to the side, and then 5 fingers. Let's just do the mitten thing. And you have a joint here, your wrist, right? Well, you have all kinds of joints in your fingers too. You can just move your fingers as well. So you got all these joints in your fingers. And then you have your radius and ulna, these 2 bones here, another joint, and then a joint all the way up to your arm, right there, your shoulder joint. Now, when we're drawing, especially traditionally, and when you're doing figure work and things like that, we want to get these nice, large, beautiful lines, you know, as big as we can get them, curves and everything. And that's hard to do if we're not using the shoulder joint here. The more joints are the biggest joints we use, or the bigger the joints we use, the bigger the lines we can get. The interesting thing is, you know, you have joints throughout your body, and I've seen even muralists, graffiti artists, things like that, where they don't even use their arm. They use their legs and their whole body to make lines, you know, 10 feet across, these big arcing lines, and that's how they get these really nice, smooth arcs. But for us, we're going to be using, as much as we can, we're going to be using our shoulder joint, to lesser degree our elbow, because I'm on a 24-inch screen, so it's a bit easier. For you, it might be harder depending on what you're working on. But using those bigger joints, why is that important? Because it will help you get those bigger lines. If you're not doing that, let's say I'm just using my wrist here and I'm going to try and get one of those big lines. I'm going to be doing kind of a scratchy thing, right? And if I'm using just my fingers, you know, I have to move my arm anyways just to get that. So not going to work too well. So we're going to try and use our arm as much as possible. So it's a workout too, somewhat. And this is training your dexterity. Dexterity is really important in art. It's the physical foundation for art, because if you want to put a daub of paint here, you have to be able to physically put that daub of paint there, right? So getting it where it needs to go. And if you've had a lot of coffee or tea like I do in the morning, maybe it's going to be shaky anyways, because I'm doing those painting tutorials and my brush is really shaky. So we're going to be using our arm, and I'm going to draw a circle right in the center, in between these 2 lines, and trying to keep it like right around in that area. Okay, going for it. Now when I do this, I have... Actually, let me turn on my mouse cursor so you can see this. Or my mouse highlight. So here's where I'm going. So my pinky finger and ring finger are barely touching the screen, just for support, and I'm doing all these ghosted circles. And then at some point when I'm comfortable, I'm just going to drop the stylus down. Circle. It doesn't meet on the right hand side, but that's okay. So I can hit delete. Can't do this on a big sheet of paper, or you can't hit delete. Oh, it's interesting. I keep missing down there. Let's try one more time. And yeah, you don't have to try this many times. Just do it once. This is going to be a practice that shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. Wow, that's the worst one yet. I'm locking up. Got to keep free, got to keep loose. Got to do it quickly. This is my warm-up, just drawing these circles right now. All right, that's good enough. Don't need to go for perfection, just need to go for closeness. You get better and better the more you do this. So this is how you can get better quickly at any medium, especially with the dexterity and the feeling of the medium. Because each medium has its own tactile experience. We're going to draw a little circle in the center. So we have a donut with a really small circle. And then the next thing we're going to do is ellipses. So I'm going to continue to ghost here. I turned off my mouse cursor because it's getting in the way for these smaller things. We're going to do these ellipses. And we're going to start with what's easiest for the angle of my arm. So this angle is super easy for me as far as ellipses are concerned, even though that top ellipse is not so good, but it's okay. It's been a while since I've done this. This is another wonderful indicator of, if you're not doing art for a while, this will tell you right away, like how quote unquote rusty you are. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to make kind of this pinwheel thing. All these ellipses. And why are we doing it this way, Chris? Why do we have all these ellipses inside of a circle? Well, because ellipses are super hard to draw and get right. Because what is an ellipse? Ellipse is a symmetrical circle on its side with degrees. And it's not an oval. That's not a very symmetrical ellipse. And yes, I could go into Krita and I could go to this, what do you call it? Assistant tool. And then I can go down here and I can choose ellipse. And I could easily draw an ellipse out. So I have this nice ellipse here, right? If I wanted to, and I could rotate it and turn it and do whatever I want to with it. And then I could use my brush. Let's say, let me go back to brush and I say snap to assistant. And I make this perfect ellipse, okay? This is a good example of what an ellipse is. So that's an ellipse because it is perfectly symmetrical on either side. If I bisected this list vertically and horizontally, actually along the long axis, or not the long axis, what do they call it? The major axis and the minor axis. All four quadrants would be exactly the same if I bisected them directly in the center. That's what an ellipse is. It's not an oval. An oval is an ellipse that is not symmetrical, okay? So getting that symmetry is the hardest thing. All these are ovals. Everything I've drawn so far is just ovals. It's not really ellipses. And every now and then you'll hit one that's like, wow, I think that's a perfect ellipse. But we're not going for that kind of perfection. But we have a target, which is an ellipse. Our target is this kind of ellipse idea, right? So we have a target to hit. When we set a target to hit, we've got a game, okay? It's like playing tennis. Alan Watts said this. He's a philosopher, but he said tennis is only fun when it's played on a court. We got to have a court to play tennis, right? I forget how the lines go in tennis. I think it's like this. And maybe there's something in there. So if you're just, if you just got two people not on the court and, they're just hitting the ball back and forth with no rules to it whatsoever, it's not really a game. We're not aiming for anything. There's no progression happening. There's no challenge. It's just like, oh, we're passing a ball back and forth with rackets. Maybe there's some challenge to that. But when you set a target, now there's a challenge involved. Now you have something to hit. Now it's a game. Now it can be fun, okay? And our challenge is to get better at this. But why are they at all these angles? Because that's another challenge built into this. There's so many layers within this, and I'll talk about each one. The layer here is how to draw an ellipse at all these different angles. How to get your arm used to all these different angles. And yes, I could hold shift and spacebar and rotate my canvas however I want. Okay, and then hit 5 to straighten it out because it is digital. But this is traditional to digital. We're talking digital artists or traditional artists. So hopefully you're not going to stop doing traditional art. This is training both sides. This is more of you and less of the digital taking over. So this ellipse here, that I'm going to try and draw, is the hardest for my angle of my arm right here. Yeah, it's not too bad. And I'll keep going around, drawing these ellipses, filling up space, making this flower. And that's the first exercise. This is what we start with. And I'm talking a bunch here, so normally this would take no time. We would already be done with it, like forever ago. And that's one thing, this whole exercise that I'm going to go through should only take like 5 minutes. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw 3 lines off to the left and the right. It's kind of like I see flags like this on the side of planes in like World War II and stuff. It goes out like this. I'm not sure what it means. Haven't researched it. But you have these lines on either side. And those lines themselves are a practice because I'm trying to get straight lines, one big motion with my arm, not these scratchy lines. I'm not going slowly and taking my time because then it's all bumpy. It's one big fluid motion. And that's another thing. Everything we do on here, we want to be one big fluid motion, okay? So the top line, we're going to do circles. And the circles have to touch here, right on this circle, wherever that ends up, right? And then we need to try and get, an ellipse at a 0 degree, which is a circle. So it touches on the top line, touches on the bottom line, and hopefully touches here. Again, another game. Going to do one right to the next of it and try and touch all those lines. All right, that's not too bad. I'm happy with that one. And then I'll even fill up in this little area. Have some fun with it. And then ellipses again on the next line. These are all at the same angle. And they're all touching each other. Yeah, this one is not so good, but that's okay. This is how we're getting better. And, I'm going to be moving this all over the place to put it in some kind of fashion where I can get these ellipses. So last line, same, ellipse, but different angle. I'm ghosting maybe once or twice and then putting it down right there. And then we can fill up the space with a circle. Trying to get them to touch in those 3 areas is fun. And then we'll repeat the same thing on this side. I'm going a bit faster now just to fill in. This will give you an idea of how quick you can get to this. And there is a physical warm-up that happens here. A lot of times I feel that this is more a mental warm-up. This is getting your arm ready in some aspect, getting you in that mode to draw some flowy lines, right? Especially if you're getting ready to do some gesture drawing. It's really helpful for that. But this is also good, you know, you show up every day and you're thinking, oh man, I really don't feel like doing any artwork today. Let me just do my warm up. After you do your warm up, you're like, oh, this drawing thing is fun. And then you start drawing even more. It's kind of introductory into your art day, right? So a lot of this was built from drawbox.com. Probably one of the best resources, I would say the best resource online for taking you from zero to, what would I say? From zero to, not perspective master. Maybe good at it. So that's drawbox.com. And the beginning of drawbox.com is all about, like, if you go to lesson 1 on there, and it's completely free, by the way. You just go through it. It's a huge course. It takes you months. I've tried to get through the whole thing. I never have. You can look at past times in my website. I even got pretty far through it with digital when I was restarting. And with lesson 1, it starts you out with, this ability. It talks about using your whole arm, like I've talked about. It talks about getting nice looking lines. It talks about some practices that we'll go through with straight lines, of measuring your straight lines out and getting some nice weights on everything. Drawbox has you do it traditionally with pen and ink, but I don't think that that's completely necessary, honestly. You can do it digitally, and it'd be just fine. But a lot of this was built from that. And I would suggest that you try, check out that free resource. If you're just starting out drawing, it's fantastic, especially taking you into getting you familiar with the dexterity that it takes with drawing, and into perspective. If you want to learn perspective really well, I mean, all those exercises are fantastic, because you will draw a box, you will draw thousands of boxes. And how do you get better at anything? Practice. A bunch of times. That's how we get better at anything. So if you want to get better at perspective, draw boxes. Drawbox.com, so check that out. All right, the next thing we're going to do, if I go back to my example here, you can see at the top, we're going to go to the top. Lots of straight lines on this one, but we're going to start with points, and this comes directly from Drawbox too. So you draw 4 points. They could be at any weird angle. Just have fun here, and then we're going to have fun connecting them. So, and the hard part here is to start and stop your straight line at a certain point. Oof, pretty good there. Happy with that one. Not so much on that one. Okay. Really confident lines. And then we're going to connect them at angles as well. We're going to find the center of this rectangle by drawing those diagonals. If you didn't know, that's how you find the absolute center of any trapezoid, rectangle, 4-sided thing. That's how you do it. And then I believe we do the, oh yeah, we even go from edge to center to edge. We can do that without points. Oh, I didn't stop at the edge there. Oh well. Then the fun thing is we're going to try and get an ellipse in here that hits this point, this point, this point, and this point. And then the more you think about it, you start thinking about what is the perspective of the ellipse in this weird shaped trapezoid. I think it's a trapezoid. Well, rectangle. rectangle in perspective. You try to think about, well, this side of the ellipse closest to us will be a bit larger. But no, that's an oval because ellipses are always symmetrical. No matter what, they're always symmetrical. They wouldn't bow out or anything. It would be this symmetrical thing. The difference is that if you, and this is part of perspective, I learned this from Marshall Vandriff's course, which is really cool. So if you had this rectangle, which is obviously kind of got some perspective to it, like this is further away from this is, okay? So this is, the top is far and the bottom is near. If you had drawn on, let's say it's a board, and you drew a circle on it, and the center of the circle was right here, it would that would continue to be the center of the circle. But if you imagined an ellipse upon this, the center of that ellipse would be different. It would be like right there, which is interesting. Won't go further into that. There's a lot of science into that. All right, we're going to try and hit this all 4 points. Not going to be a perfect ellipse, just trying to hit all 4 points. Wow, I did pretty good on that. I'm happy with that one. We're going to continue with this. Make these 4 dots, going a bit faster. Always trying to ghost at least once. Oof. Maybe twice on each of your lines that you create. See, it's off in the center. That's okay. We're getting better. And then the circle. And then we'll do a thin one here. The smaller you make these, sometimes the easier the lines. And this one's really wonky because I'm trying to go faster right now. And that's the thing, you go faster, you're not going to do it as well. Now an ellipse in the center. And it doesn't have to be from top to bottom. I could do some smaller boxes. Jeez. Going too fast, Chris. Slow it down. So if I slow this one down, I know that I can make it better than the one above it. Let's see. So you look at really professional, like amazing artists, and it looks like everything that they're doing is just so fast. But if you really watch them, you'll see that they're not moving in a hurry. They're not moving their arm like crazy across the page or across the tablet. What they're doing is they have that dexterity and that accuracy down. Through the accuracy, that's where the speed comes. Because you don't have to hit Control Z, you don't have to erase, you don't have to do things over. You do it you do it right the first time. So there you go. That's most of the practice there. So we got our center section first, the top section, and now we're going to do the bottom section. Let's go down here. And this one's a lot easier. Oh, well, it's a lot. There's not much to it. I wouldn't say it's easier. First thing I'm going to do is draw a line across the bottom. Maybe like, some kind of space, small space from the bottom. And that's a practice as well. I'm trying to keep it even, all that even, but got pretty close and that's fine. And then we start drawing vertical lines that start here and in there. These are really long vertical lines. And we try to keep them at whatever space we begin with, we try to keep them all at that same space. And we try to end them correctly as well. Well, this takes a lot more focus than you would think. And if you could see me right now, I am using even my back and everything to kind of move my entire upper torso down. Like I'll start with a straight back and then my entire torso goes down to try and get that darn line as straight as I can. So this is really, that's not very easy to do. But, you know, not a bad result. You know, trying to keep those as straight as possible. Again, working on that dexterity. And then we'll start drawing horizontal lines. And each line gets bigger and bigger. So we'll start by going over two of these columns, like right there. And then we got to hit the next one over. Whoops. Wow, that was terrible. And then try and keep these spaces similar. And just growing each line, but keeping it spaced out. It's like you're trying to create perfect squares. Oh, I messed up the spacing on those. And you'll find that when your arm reaches a certain point, you have to move your paper around because you're kind of in this weird position. You're getting an understanding of your physical artistic self and what you need to be able to, you know, do what you need to do, basically. And so we'll do the same on the other side, but opposite. So we're going to move this way now. So maybe it's easy for you to go from left to right on your lines, but maybe it's difficult from right to left. So we're going to start, let's start down here. We'll start at the bottom. Small again. And build it out. And I'm not ghosting any of these. I should be. This is hard for me. That, you know, right to left is difficult for me. This is an exercise that will help your dexterity for every medium. As I do this, you know, I'm still working my arm. I'm still working my hand-eye coordination, my dexterity. This is going to transfer just as well to painting. And there you go. That's the whole practice. That's it. Let me make sure I went through everything on my notes. Drawbox.com, ellipses, very challenging. It's a wonderful way to build dexterity though. Practice more ellipses than anything and you'll get better faster. Many different configurations and have fun with it. Let's go over that. So you don't have to do it just like this. There's just some guidelines, some rules that I set in place here, some ideas. But let me take a snapshot of this. Actually, I'm going to do this. Oh, can I not save it? What's going on? Okay, there we go. So I can show that I actually did something. Oh, today's the 10th. I forgot a folder. 36, 37. Day 3,637 of daily art for me, guys. It's huge. But I want it to be only 1,200. It'll go on my website. So I can zoom out on this, and now that I saved it, I can just hit delete because I've been working everything on a separate layer. And if you don't like this background, if you don't like this kind of warm background, you can change the background to whatever you want by changing this bottom layer color. Maybe we want, let me see, I'll hit the fill bucket and maybe I just want a gray, like a darker gray. Did that fill? Probably better to create a new layer over that, I would say. So insert, there we go. So it's a bit more gray, but that still didn't feel, oh, the opacity is nothing on this. Wonder why that was like that. There we go. So it's more like a darker gray if you want something like that, or a lighter gray. I got this paper texture over top of it. So if you don't want the paper texture, you can just hide that as well. So all these possibilities. I like this kind of warm color though to work on. It's good on my eyes, you know, all that kind of stuff. But there's rules on here that you can change up. Let's go to 100%. So the first thing I'm going to say is ellipses. Ooh. Wait, how you spell ellipses again? E-L-L. So ellipses. And then circles are ellipses. But trying to get ellipses, that's one thing you can draw here. Lines. And then practice your begin and end on those. Wow, I should write larger with this big brush. So line, practice your beginning, your ending, the rectangles. And let me illustrate these. So ellipse practicing, lines practicing, you know, hitting those points. Just put points all over your page. You can even do this and just hit each one. Make them really long, really short. Practicing your rectangles by doing 4 dots. Now these are this is building blocks I'm going through for how you can build your own warm-up basically. The other thing you can do, and this was a lot of fun, I didn't show this one, but you can do waves. So this is an idea where you make these waves. Could be any wave like that, and then maybe a softer one there. And then you take ellipses through the waves. And you have to match, they have to hit the lines. Both the top and the bottom line and the line from the previous ellipse. So you can put waves all over this. The lines of circles, the lines of ellipses. So this would be, you know, we'll do circles in a line. Ellipses in a line. This is the kind of thing that, yeah, you could just breeze through it and just like, oh, I don't care about this stupid exercise, you know, and just really screw it up. No, I mean, this is the kind of thing where you give it a lot of focus, okay? What's nice about the waves is you get different sizes of ellipses. The other thing that you can add in on this, especially when you go through drawbox.com, or, you know, I'll probably be covering a lot of it through this course because it's so good, is drawing boxes themselves. And the best way to draw boxes is to start with 3 lines. So let's do a center line here, one that goes out that way and out this way. Are you standing or sitting when doing digital? Do you stand or sit while doing oil painting? I tend to sit more often than not. I'm definitely sitting while I'm doing digital because the 24-inch XP pen is just sitting on my desk. I would like to get a boom arm for it, but I can't really afford that right now. Yeah, and you know, it's fine on my desk, I think. I would like to stand with it. That'd be pretty cool. Have a standing desk, one of those ones that kind of raises up and down. That would be nice for my back. Every now and then I'll stand when I draw. It's better to stand when you're drawing or painting because you can step back from it, but I tend to have some physical ailments when that happens and it distracts me from what I'm doing. So instead what I do is I take often breaks, which reminds me, I need to get more tea. Give me 1 second, guys. So basically I just stood up and stretched and went over and grabbed my thermos of hot tea to pour in my cup. And that's what I do. So I'll set a timer, just like if you were in a life drawing class and the model was posing for you, there's going to be a 20-minute timer. And every 20 minutes, the model has to get up and move around. And artists should do the same thing. Get up, move around, keep healthy. If you can't do art if you're not healthy, if your health is terrible. Yeah, you don't need to be an athlete, but at the same time, you got to be able to get out of bed, maybe. Well, no, maybe not, because I know a lot of artists back in the day were just doing art in bed too. It's not very healthy for you. Not going to be a long life. So drawing boxes here. That's great practice. And especially if when you draw a box, let's do one that's got a different perspective. Especially if you do a box. Oh, that line was way off. And you draw through it. I'm going to draw through it in a moment. Making sure the angles are somewhat close. So this would go off into the distance that way. So simple, yet so hard, honestly. Getting boxes right in perspective takes lots of practice. So drawing boxes all over this is other warm-up practice you can do, something you're kind of hitting on, in the morning. Sometimes what I'll do is, in this example, because, I basically did the same thing digitally and deleted it, like in these side areas around in here, I'll draw some extra things. So boxes or Loomis heads, maybe you guys are familiar with Andrew Loomis, Andrewloo. Loomis has a really good kind of formula for getting the three-dimensional idea of a head down quickly. So you take a ellipse at 0 degrees, circle, right? And then, okay, what's the next step? I forget. This is why I need to do this more often. Get a better circle. So you have your circle here, and then I think the first thing you do is identify. Oh, you cut the edges off of it, I believe. So I do an ellipse on this side, maybe a bit to the edge there. So this is going to be a person looking down and to the right. And then you identify the brow line, which will be right in the center. Oh, jeez. That's a tough angle for me. Right there. And then the line that goes back in space on the side there. Actually, you would do this line first. And then you drop that same angle straight down here. I really need to review Loomis heads on here, how to do a Loomis head. That would be a good practice, digitally or traditionally. Yeah, because I've forgotten this whole thing. I'm pretty sure you do something like this. Yeah, we should probably do some Loomis heads. But anyway, once I go through those, this is another thing that you can add to your warm-up. I mean, literally anything. The important thing is that you set some rules to it. You set some goals for achievement, that target to hit. Set a target. If we look at drawbox.com, let me bring that up. Yeah, I do want to show off this website because it's such a good resource. They're advertising New Masters Academy. There's a connection with Drawbox and New Masters Academy now, which is good. New Masters Academy is really nice. So you go up here to lessons, and The get started is going to be all about the materials they want you to use. You don't have to be exact on that. They're very much into using ballpoint pen and paper, but they keep it really cheap. They say just get a bunch of copy paper, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's super cheap. And these fine liner pens, which aren't so cheap. But then lesson 1, they get directly into lines, ellipses, and boxes, and that's an intro basically. They talks about using your arm, you know, on these points, just kind of like I went over, doing ghosting, mark making, you know, better mark making. You know, this is for a lot of illustrative purposes and things like that. They have homework, and that's the great thing about Drawbox is everything is practical. Everything builds into exercises. So you watch the examples, and then you go through and you do like 2 pages of the superimposed line exercise. What is that exercise? That's the exercise where, let me zoom in again, where let's say I maybe change the flow. Let's change the flow of this pen that I have. Oh, the strength is already pretty low. Let's turn it way down. Let's see what that's like. Okay. So superimposed lines is if I have one line, my goal here is to draw over that line exactly with another line. Oh, you see how I went outside of it? And trying to do that multiple times. And what you'll end up with most of the time, like maybe you go over it 3 or 4 times, but a lot of times you'll end up with this kind of line that's hairy at the end. So it starts out good and then it ends up hairy at the end. So that's another exercise. And then one filled page of ghosted lines exercise, ghosted planes. So we did some planes at the top of our exercise. Then it gets into ellipses, which is fantastic. I love how they explain ellipses here. This guy explains ellipses and what they are. Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that the circle was an ellipse at 0 degrees. It's a circle at 90 degrees. Or it's an ellipse at 90 degrees. That's what a circle is. Yeah. Nice. 0 degrees is just a line. There you go. Everything is an ellipse, you could say. It's just at 0 degrees. Minor axis, major axis. Understanding minor axis and major axis is great for cylinders because they take you into boxes, cylinders, all kinds of great stuff. So you do 2 pages of table of ellipses, 2 pages of ellipses and planes, 1 filled page of funnel exercises, and then we get into boxes. This is the meat and potatoes of this exercise, or this whole course. Just fantastic. And you do all kinds of boxes. Just many. Gets deep into it. And all you have to do is just go through each page and hit next. And this is the crazy one, a 250 box challenge. I actually got through all of this. It was, I would say that this is kind of like a barrier to entry. This is where they're testing you. How committed are you to getting better? And the 250 boxes is something where it's like, oh my gosh, this takes forever. Especially because it's not just drawing boxes, it's you're drawing the boxes and you're testing to see how accurate your boxes are as well. If I did this, I would lower that barrier to like 100 this time because there's a cylinder challenge. And then in lesson 2, they get into thinking in 3D, which is fantastic. The most important thing for any artist is understanding form and how it moves through space. And there's so many great exercises here, like making these ribbons, doing cross contour lines and contour lines. I talk about that all the time, of contours and cross contours. Observation and memory, they start building showing how to build form and shading. Yeah, I remember getting this far, building these. So implicit versus explicit, which is actually really cool. I won't get into that. Construction. Oh, construction is a lot of fun. This is an exercise we might do where you look at a object like this mushroom. Mushrooms are actually really great examples for construction. They have very simple construction to them, and you can change them in very simple shapes. So this is just a tube, a cylinder, with a cone on top of it. And so you build the construction up one layer at a time, and then you go over the implicit versus explicit detail exercise that he tells you about, and gives you an idea of how to create that mushroom. So really fantastic exercise. And the wonderful thing about, being in the digital age right now, we can get a million images online and just draw from them all day long. Plants construction. We got technical exercises where you're really observing. I've gotten this far. I've done all these. The daisy demo was really cool. Mushroom demo. Let's back up. So, and then you get there's a 250 box challenge, a 250 cylinder challenge, the 25 texture challenge, the 25 wheel challenge, 100 treasure chest challenge, and that's like much later on. Lesson 3 is applying construction to plants, applying construction to insects and arachnoids, which is really cool, and then construction to animals, and then it gets all the way into lesson 7, which is applying all this construction to really complex vehicles. Fantastic. Another resource that you might like is Scott Robertson's book, How to Draw, if you're into all the technical drawing and stuff, because it goes through a lot of that, all the technical ideas for things, or for drawing. But that's the warm-up. Grab the download when it's up there on my Gumroad, and you can really use this page in Krita to build your own warm-up every day. Thinker asks, what do you think of the learning theory that you should draw what you're interested in, passionate about, then move on to the more technical aspects as they come up naturally? I like that theory because I think, if I suggested, okay, let me back up. Let me get my thoughts in order before I start just blabbering. So if a new artist, if a young person asked me today and said, where do I start? And then their next question is going to be, how long does it take? Right? The rest of your life, that's the answer. Where do I start? My question back to them is, what do you love? That's what it's going to be. So me and my business partner, Josh Johnson, who also has a YouTube channel, he does tattoo art, great tattoo artist. We were building a course like this, and we had a whole foundational course that we were going to build. It just got too big, and he's running a business, and I'm trying to do a bunch of stuff too. But it's kind of in the background now. And the one thing is when you're sent through a curriculum, you go from these kind of boxes, right? These steps. And it's logical, right? It has a logical format. Even with Drawbox, it's a very logical format. And you move through these steps, and each one gets more complex than the other, right? So we're building up complexity for each one every time we go through. And they even say this in Drawbox, which I think is fantastic. The place to start is aligning this pathway that you're going to go through in life with something at the end, wherever that may be, or even, maybe not at the end, something that you want, right? So that's number one. So if you love game art, you would want to take, Drawbox would be tremendously helpful for you to get you there. And almost any fundamental course would be fine because, the major fundamentals, composition, drawing, form, perspective, that's used everywhere in art. I don't care what you're doing. You're going to have to know all that. But then you start to pick kind of this thing aligned to what you love. So you try and keep that in your mind, which is what I love to do. And it's hard to do that, especially when, this is year one at the beginning. Each of these boxes are years. So 5 years down the line, what you love may change, or you've completely forgotten about it. So the way to do that is even before you start anything, you just get started. Here you are with a piece of paper in front of you, just drawing something. And that something should be what you enjoy doing. The real definition of talent is not this definition after you become good at something. Oh, you're so talented, right? The real definition of talent is motivation. You're so talented at something, when someone says that to you, means that you're interested in it enough to practice. And that begins with what you enjoy to do. Okay? You have to have that. You have to do what you love. If you don't do that, you will not work hard at it. If you have a job you hate every day, you will not want to go to it, and you will not be your best. What you will do is go in there and just half-ass everything, as we say in America. And you won't get better at it, So you got to start with what you're motivated to draw. If that's insects, if that's, oil painting, still life. Or I want to be this wonderful portrait artist, or I want to draw like the guys at Epic Games, or whatever you want to do. Kind of keep that in your head and keep doing that. And as you're working through these exercises, you take that love, that piece of your love, and you move it and you bring it along with you. Yeah, I'm doing line exercises in number one and everything. And I'm not really good at what I love to draw, but I'm still going to try and draw it every day. I'm getting better, year two, because I'm doing some form and perspective, and I'm learning more. And what I love to draw is getting a little bit better. And then we keep moving it down the road. So through every lesson that you have, you also pair it with what you love to do. You always constantly come back to that. So it's kind of like practice thing, boring lines, boring boxes, boring whatever. And then let me get back to that drawing I was working on too. So you kind of combine each one. It's not completely about what you're interested in and passionate about, because you have to build that foundation first. Well, I will remove the word first, because when you build the foundation, the mortar should be what you love, okay? And you can't build a foundation without mortar, okay? You have to have the glue that holds everything together, which is the mortar. So if I'm putting a bunch of bricks on top of each other, all of these bottom foundations down here is going to be drawing, perspective, composition, understanding form, these kind of things. Then you get into texture and line rhythm and color and all this other stuff. But in between all of that is that mortar of what you love. And that's what holds it all together. That's what keeps you moving forward. That's what keeps you stacking those bricks every day, because you're going to have to stack a lot of bricks. You're going to have to put in the time, the effort. And, you know, if you don't want to show up and lift those heavy bricks and do it, you're not going to get better. What's going to happen? And see, the one thing that I try to communicate in one of my latest videos on YouTube, if you're not working at it almost daily, every single day, and getting better, you're digressing. As you build the bricks up, if you have too much space and time between these bricks as you put them up, the winds of life will come and knock them down. So yeah, I practice that brick, but time and life will begin to erase these. Okay? And you're not going to be completely terrible at this if you waited 3 or 4 years, but you're going to have to re-practice these again to get them back up to speed, to get back to, you know, building your skills up again. That's what happened to me 10 years ago. I hadn't done any artwork in 5 years, and I found that, wow, I was just kind of a novice again. Had to start over. Not completely. I mean, I was able to ramp up a bit faster, but there you go. But yeah, what you love. But not. I guess my point there is, it's not all about just your passion. You have to build those fundamentals into it. And I think I repeated that maybe a million times. It's a great question, Thinker. And next time, ask it like maybe 5 minutes into the stream. No, kidding. I think you came up with it like close to the end, and that's perfectly fine. Thank you so much for the great questions. But actually, this kind of idea, the psychological, motivational side of art, which is so important, you know, the foundation that's below all these foundations that I didn't even talk about, is that motivation, the ability to get up early in the morning and do what you love, kind of thing. That's the foundation that many artists never talk about. And that's what I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel, is talk about those kind of things, how to be motivated as an artist. Unfortunately, it's not a broad topic. People just want to see how to do drawing and stuff like that, which is good. I mean, learning all this warm-up stuff and learning the drawing and things like that is great. But if you don't feel like it, if you don't have the motivation to show up every day, none of this matters, because you won't do it. Okay, guys, that's 1 hour, a little bit over. Thank you for the wonderful question, Thinker, and always thank you for showing up, and thank you for anybody that has shown up and watched this stream during the stream. Again, going to repeat this. To get all of the resources, you can go to my Gumroad, which is linked in the description for all the resources. And if you're watching this stream right now, yes, the big Y. That's one of my videos. If you're watching this stream right now and you want to get all the resources at 50% off, you can use the CB50 off, what do you call it? Discount code at Gumroad, at my Gumroad. And then it'll only be $5. $5 US. I'm not sure what that is in any other currency, but there you go. Thanks, everyone. Check out my other videos. Check out my website. Actually, I was on my website today. It was kind of down. I don't know what's going on with that, so I'll have to check it after this. But anyways, I will see you tomorrow.